Come and discover 50 facts about the incredible C.S. Lewis. 1. C.S. Lewis is short for Clive Staples Lewis, the author's full name, who was born on November 29, 1898. 2. Although he is most associated with England, Lewis was actually born in Belfast, Ireland, and is of Irish descent. 3. He was the youngest son of Albert James Lewis and Florence Lewis. 4. C.S. Lewis' grandfather was Welsh and married a woman from Liverpool, England. They emigrated to Ireland. Have you subscribed to the channel? It doesn't cost anything and you help bring stories like this to more people. Like and share, your life will be greatly blessed and the prosperity of generosity will come to your life. 5. An interesting fact about his family. C.S. Lewis' grandfather was one of the owners of the shipping companies responsible for building the original Titanic. This Titanic, however, did not sink and was a great success. 6. C.S. Lewis had an older brother named Warren Lewis. He called him Waring, and he was a great companion throughout his adult life. 7. Lewis's family had a vast library of books, and he grew up immersed in this literary environment. The Irish nature also had a great influence on his childhood, feeding his imagination. 8. C.S. Lewis was a rather solitary child. His childhood was spent between books and nature, without much interaction with other children. 9. As a child, he created a pseudonym and called himself Jack. This would be the name by which he was known to his family and close friends. 10. On August 23, 1908, when Lewis was only 10 years old, his mother, Florence Lewis, died of cancer, a deeply traumatic episode for him. 11. After his mother's death, C.S. Lewis had a difficult relationship with his father, Albert James Lewis, who withdrew emotionally from his children, leaving them to grieve over their loss. 12. After his mother's death, Lewis was sent to boarding school, where he had a terrible experience, deeply hating this type of school. He shared these feelings in his autobiography, criticizing boarding schools of the time. 13. Interestingly, his brother Warren Lewis had a completely different experience, finding boarding schools to be a good experience. 14. During his teenage years, C.S. Lewis asked his father if he could be homeschooled instead of staying at boarding school. His father hired a private tutor, William Kirkpatrick, who had previously tutored Lewis's own father and brother. 15. William Kirkpatrick had a great influence on Lewis's intellectual life, especially in influencing C.S. Lewis to turn away from religion and adopt an atheistic view. 16. In 1916, at the age of 18, C.S. Lewis was admitted to the University of Oxford. He moved there, where he lived alone, supported financially by his father. 17. When he arrived at Oxford in 1917, Lewis wrote to his father in a letter saying that the place surpassed my wildest dreams, and that he had never seen anything so beautiful. 18. During his years at Oxford, C.S. Lewis would become part of the academy, remaining there for many years not only as a student but also as a professor. 19. Oxford is a university city of great historical and architectural importance. The city's libraries and colleges have inspired many fantasy works, including scenes from Harry Potter. 20. In 1914, when World War I began, Lewis interrupted his studies to serve in the conflict, a period he preferred not to remember in detail. 21. While training for war, Lewis made a promise to a friend named Padmore. They promised that if one of them died during the war, the other would take care of the deceased's family. 22. When Padmore died in the war, C.S. Lewis kept his promise, becoming close to his friend's family and moving in with them after the war ended. 23. This relationship with Padmore's family included an affair with his friend's mother, Janet Moore, a divorced woman, which was a controversial point in C.S. Lewis's life. 24. After the war ended, and after recovering from his injuries, C.S. Lewis returned to Oxford to finish his studies and continue his academic career. 25. In 1920, C.S. Lewis graduated with honors in literature at the age of 20. 26. C.S. Lewis taught at Magdalen College, formerly called Magdalen College, but the correct spelling is Magdalen, from 1925 to 1954, a long period. During this time, he was a member of the faculty, acting as a literary consultant and theologian until his death in 1963. 27. Later, Lewis also taught at Oxford and Cambridge, teaching medieval literature, something that is related to those who have read the Chronicles of Narnia. 28. Lewis was friends with several writers, including J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings. This friendship was fundamental to his conversion. 29. C.S. Lewis will describe his conversion as being the most reluctant in all of England. He explains that his conversion was a gradual and complex process, dividing it into 3 phases. 1. Atheist phase. Initially, Lewis was an atheist with a childhood far from the Christian faith. 2. Theist phase. In 1925, at the age of 27, he began to have doubts about his atheism, influenced by readings of authors such as George MacDonald and G.K. Chesterton. These readings began to change his worldview, pointing to something greater, like a deep longing for something beyond life. 3. Christian phase. Finally, in 1931, he converted to Christianity, after discussions with his Christian friends, Tolkien and Hugo Dyson. 30. These 2 friends greatly influenced Lewis. Nightly conversations and even nature walks in Oxford helped Lewis come to the conclusion that God existed, but he still did not believe in Christianity. 31. In September 1931, Lewis had his full conversion to Christ. On June 8, 1941, he preached a famous sermon at St. Mary's Church, which would later become the book, The Weight of Glory. This church was an important source of inspiration for Lewis, especially in relation to his work, The Chronicles of Narnia. 32. After his conversion, Lewis began writing apologetic books and was heavily criticized in the academic environment at Oxford. However, he maintained his faith publicly, even though it damaged his professional image. 33. During World War II, Lewis was invited to give talks on BBC Radio, where he brought messages of hope to the citizens of the United Kingdom. These talks resulted in the book Mere Christianity, one of his most important works. 34. During the talks, Lewis invited Christian friends from different denominations, a Presbyterian, a Catholic, and a Methodist, to demonstrate that his Christianity was not limited to a single religious branch. This project was a success and helped to establish him as a national celebrity. 35. Before 1950, Lewis was an old bachelor in Oxford. But in 1950, he began corresponding with an American woman named Joy Davidman. She was of Jewish descent, a former communist, and 16 years younger than Lewis. She was also going through a difficult time. Her husband was an alcoholic, cheated on her, and there was domestic violence. 36. Joy came to England to visit Lewis, and after her husband abandoned her, she decided to move there. Since her visa was about to expire, Lewis married her on paper to help her. However, after this strategy, Joy was diagnosed with bone cancer and the romance blossomed. Lewis fell deeply in love with her. 37. After Joy was diagnosed with cancer, Lewis declared that, since she was hit by this news, I have loved her more. They were married in a religious ceremony and lived together during her final days. After Joy's death in 1960, Lewis wrote The Anatomy of Grief, a painful but powerful work. 38. 3 years after Joy's death, Lewis began to experience health problems and died on November 22, 1963, the same day as John F. Kennedy's assassination. 39. Lewis' legacy is multifaceted. He brought a new vision of the Christian world, with beauty and transcendence, as seen in the Chronicles of Narnia. He also left a legacy of apologetic, being an atheist converted at Oxford who established himself as a defender of the Christian faith, even in the midst of academic difficulties and criticism. 40. For those who want to know more about Lewis' life, there is a biography written by Alistair McGrath that is an excellent recommendation. In addition, Lewis' works are rich in theological reflection, fantasy, and apologetic. Brazilian publications by Thomas Nelson, such as the collection of complete works by Lewis, are a great way to access his legacy. The relevance of C.S. Lewis today. Lewis left behind a vast literary output ranging from apologetic to fiction, with themes that still resonate today, especially in the context of spiritual and existential questions. Reading his books is highly recommended for anyone seeking to understand more about faith, suffering, and the beauty of Christianity. Don't miss out on more amazing content. Subscribe now and be a part of our community. Stay up to date with everything that's coming and don't forget to follow the news. Just click the subscribe button and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Join us